record. The reason I'm recording is so that if folks are unable to attend one of my scheduled trainings, they still have an opportunity to watch a recording. So thank you all for being here. I am so excited. This is my first volunteer training of the year. I've done a couple of other trainings, but this is my first volunteer one, and this is a good turnout. This is exciting. So there should be folks here from Linn, Benton, and Lincoln counties, and I just want to welcome all of you. Thank you for those of you that have done it before. For those of you that this is your first time, thank you for joining in. This is a super important activity that takes place just one time a year, and you guys are a part of the Army that's going to make it happen. So thank you for being here. I will go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. So I'm hoping that if you're here in this training that you are here to learn about the 2024 point in time count and that you intend on being a volunteer or organization that is participating. So welcome. I am Scott McKee. I am working under contract for Community Services Consortium as the Linn, Benton, and Lincoln County Point in Time Count Coordinator. So just a little bit about myself. I've been working in homeless services for about 7 years, serving primarily veterans or veterans that are homeless or in jeopardy of becoming homeless, and working with street outreach teams across Linn and Benton counties. As far as the point in time count goes, I've also spent about 7 years volunteering or participating as a staff member or a staff coordinator or facilitator of the point in time count. So I've been doing this for a little while and I'm super passionate about it. And I'll get into a little bit more about why, but this is super important to me and all of us in our entire community. I also want to introduce Corey. Corey's here somewhere. I can't see him in my view. But Corey is kind of our backup guy. He's the CSC HMIS analyst and agency administrator for the Homeless Management Information System. And he's kind of going to be the background guy. He's the one that's going to be reviewing all of our data with me and making sure that we don't have duplicates and trying to ensure the data is the most accurate and that it's being reported appropriately. So you won't probably see Corey or hear from Corey too much, but he is definitely here and doing the work in the background. We have 2 main ways of entering data, and he'll be working with both of those channels to ensure that everything's as accurate as possible and that folks are getting this information entered in properly. So I do want to say today is all about training you to be a volunteer. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to look at the app that we use to do the actual survey of the folks who are living homeless, and that's done through Counting Us. I'm going to get into that a little bit more a little bit later on, but I wanted to give you all a heads up so you can start maybe looking at your app stores and downloading this app. If you can get close enough, I guess there's that QR code up there, but it's a Semtech Solutions Counting Us app. If you download that, you should be able to walk through with us and be able to see real time on your own phone in test mode what the app looks like. And I'll just leave that up for a second there as folks maybe try to find it in their app stores or anything like that. You will be asked to register, which is just creating a basic account. Go ahead and do that. And then when you get to a spot that says choose count, you can hold it there. We can get further into it at that point. Give folks another minute to just research this. This can be a little bit of a headache later on when I'm trying to go through it with you all, and then you all are asking me a bunch of questions, and I'm like, I don't know.
Scott, I've got 2. I've got a Counting Us, and then there's a point in time.
Do Counting Us.
Counting Us, okay.
Yep. And you guys can go ahead and keep getting registered and all that good stuff while I'm talking. I don't think it's rude at all. I won't feel like you're ignoring me, I promise. All right, so what is the point in time count? It's a count of sheltered and unsheltered people experiencing homelessness on a single night in January. Luckily for us and for you all who are volunteers participating in the unsheltered count, we have a rural exception. As many of you know, or probably have a good idea, homelessness looks different in rural areas, and there's not a lot of central service areas where we can go to make contact with folks. Folks are kind of spread out over broad areas. oftentimes on private property and not seeking a lot of services in central areas. And so we get an allotted time period, the January 22nd to the 31st, to perform those activities for the unsheltered count, the work that you guys will all be doing out in the community. So why is it important, right? Why does it matter? Well, to be honest with you, it's the only federally recognized and statewide used numbers for determining how funding and resources are distributed, right? So one example of that would be, these numbers are reported to Congress, and Congress decides how to distribute and what priorities are of federal funding, right? So those numbers are super important when it comes to them looking at whether our area, our state, our region gets access to those resources. But also, we saw when our governor, Tina Kotek, came into office, she had 3 emergency declarations, all surrounding the issue of homelessness. And it made somewhat of upward of $26 million available for communities throughout Oregon for homeless services, right? The only tool that she had to use or was willing to use to determine what communities got access to that funding and how much was the point in time count numbers, right? So now it's no longer just a federal reporting issue. It's also a local issue on a statewide level when we're talking about funding from the state level. But it's also used on a local level from our local community action agency, Community Services Consortium, or from local political leaders when they're trying to decide what priorities are and what they need to spend their funding on. So the point in time count, although it's done by volunteers mainly and service organizations, and it's only one time a year, has significant influence and impact on our community over the long run, right? Over a longer period of time. So Community Services Consortium's role is really the official facilitating and data reporting agency, right? They're the ones that have taken on the responsibility to help Lynn, Benton, and Lincoln counties organize and facilitate this event, and then as the one that's taken the responsibility for reporting the numbers back to the government and making sure that we're reporting the best, most accurate numbers that we possibly can. So that's basically your general idea of like what the point in time count is. But what I tell people when I'm talking to them on the street is essentially it's a census. It's a census of those living homeless on the street. And it's an opportunity for us to tell their story, right? Because nobody's speaking up for them, and if they're not being counted, then we can't justify the resources and we can't make sure the services are available to fit their unique circumstances, right? So it's us that is going to do that for them. We're going to be their voice and advocate for them. So what is success? This is something I've talked about a lot over the years, because naturally as humans, we want to feel like we accomplished something, right? Like we did something. We went out there and we reported, we did 100 surveys, right? Well, the reality is it may not be that way. I've gone to events and locations where I literally only performed 1 survey. I've gone to locations where every person I asked to do a survey said no. But I will tell you this, every contact you make, every volunteer shift you show up for is critically important to building the foundation, right? Every single survey that you complete is going to add 1 more number. And maybe in the big cities, 1 might not make a difference, maybe. We hear that a lot in elections and stuff like that, right? Is, how's my vote going to matter? Well, I've ran for election on a local level in a small town, and I can tell you 1 vote matters, right? Well, in this circumstance, when a community reports 26 or 27 folks or 57 folks, it makes a difference. So every survey, if you got 1 survey contact, that makes a huge difference and matters, right? And I didn't even think about it, but I'm going to. Yes, I will. Thank you, Corey, for taking on the chat monitoring. It looks like somebody asked about a setup key. I will be presenting that setup key to you a little bit later on in the training, but thank you for being that diligent and getting in there. So again, once again, we're setting a foundation, right? So even if we just show up for a shift and we have the conversation that, hey, we're a point in time count volunteer, we're here to see if we can try to count folks who may be living homeless, right? That is helping spread the word and create a community-based awareness and knowledge about what the point in time count is and who's doing it and how folks go out and accomplish it. And like anything else, the more we do that, it builds on each other, right? It's kind of like a domino or a snowball effect, but it takes effect over a long period of time. Because next year, when I or whoever is the coordinator tries to reach out, there's more of a chance that somebody's going to know what we're talking about, right? There's more of a chance that somebody's going to be like, yeah, go ahead and come on into our establishment and count folks here. And so no matter what you do, no matter what assignment you get, I really want you to take pride and know that you are helping the overall point in time count, no matter what the results are. One new program for us, our new location that we're really going to push this year, is the Oregon Department of Human Services has really jumped on and joined in and has invited folks to assign volunteers inside their offices. And we all know that folks who are living homeless are very likely going to go to the Department of Human Services for different services, maybe as food assistance or cash assistance or whatever that may be. And so there's opportunity for us to make contacts there, but it'll be a new place. It'll be new to the staff. They're not quite sure what to expect. I'm presenting to them all week next week. And they've had some past experiences that weren't very positive, right? And so it's like, we're building on that. We're going to fix that. We're going to show up for our shifts. We're going to be there. We're going to be knowledgeable of what our goal is, for the purpose of why we're here. And we're just going to take the lead and do the count, right? And their staff is going to know what the count's about, what you're doing, and they're going to send people to you, hopefully. But if you get one survey filled out, I want you to know I'm cheering for you. I got the pom-poms up and I'm like, thank you. If you don't, I'm still cheering for you. I got the pom-poms up and I'm saying, thank you for being there, showing up, creating a reputation, and creating that foundation for the work to move forward in future years, okay? So success is any effort you put into this entire operation and effort. So who does the counting? So it's done in many different facets, right? And this is just a general overview to give you guys an idea that you're part of a team. You're not out there all by yourself. Although you may be part of a smaller team, there's a big, huge team out there trying to get this done. So we have shelter providers that are also providing the count. They're doing it a little bit differently than you all will be as unsheltered counters, but they are also counting all the folks that are staying in there. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on too. Outreach workers. I want to say, if you are not an experienced outreach worker, please don't go out and create an outreach program for the point in time count. Please join an existing outreach team or attend a different type of event. Outreach is really for trained outreach workers, and I don't want anybody that's not experienced, not out there with teamed up with experienced folks or doing it on their own, okay? Meal site staff, food box distribution staff, service provider staff. So even agencies like CSC is paying their staff to come participate and support. There may be some of them on this training with us today. We got homeless liaisons for different organizations, peer support folks, and then community volunteers, which is the majority of all of you. And then local, state, and federal agencies. Like I said just a moment ago, Department of Human Services put a lot of effort into making sure that we have an opportunity to take advantage of their locations and their contacts throughout the point in time count to try to get additional numbers. They really are going outside their normal parameters. They're very protective of potential clients and folks that come in and participate, and they're protective of their privacy. And so I've had to kind of jump through some hoops to get that permission, right? But with that said, they're participating too. So it's not just you guys, it's a whole army of folks in different atmospheres out there that are gonna make this happen. So how's the count done? For you folks, the unsheltered counters, and the non-HMIS shelter users, so the non-homeless management information system users, there's going to be the Counting Us platform. You can log in once you've registered. You can log in both on the app and the desktop version. So if your organization or you're a volunteer that's going to a place that maybe has a table, you can set up a laptop, you feel more comfortable doing that. You can also do it that way as long as you have Wi-Fi. HMIS shelters, so shelters mostly use a system of data entry that they will consistently and continue to use. And as long as they do a very accurate job, they will have to do nothing else, right? They just got to keep doing what they normally do. But us, the unsheltered counters, will be using the Counting Us platform. But most importantly, the point in time count only takes place and is successful through community engagement and volunteers like you. And I know I said it up front, and I'll probably say it 5 more times, but I really do want to thank each and every one of you for being here, signing up, and committing to be a part of this effort that really garners a lot of support and benefit to our entire community. So thank you for being here. So the sheltered homeless, the shelters will facilitate their own count. So if somebody self-identifies, say you're at an event like a meal site, and you make contact with somebody and you ask them, have you participated in the point in time count? Or you ask them the question of, where did you stay last night? And they say, I'm staying at the shelter down the road, right? You don't need to survey those folks. Those folks will be counted through the shelter staff and on their own accord, right? So whether it's the HMIS system or using the Counting Us app for the folks who don't use the HMIS system, they will do their own counting. We are only counting unsheltered folks, right? So no need to survey if they identify as they're staying within a shelter. So we, as the general volunteers, or me as a general coordinator, we're unsheltered count only. So what does unsheltered count mean? That means you're joining outreach and street counts, that you're going to meal sites, you're going to food box distribution sites, warming centers, daytime drop-in centers, local gathering locations like libraries, shopping centers, community centers, public parks, state and federal forest lands, government service providers like DHS, right? Anywhere that we might know that there's a homeless population, right? A population of folks who are currently living homeless or without permanent and stable housing, right? So one thing you can do as community members, and when you're talking to your facilitator for your volunteer shifts, you can communicate. If you know of a place, if you've been somewhere and you know somebody, communicate. Let's get that on the schedule. Let's make sure that you can get an opportunity to make contact with the folks you know. So don't feel like it's just a structured schedule. This is a broad community-wide effort, and we want to try to make as many contacts as possible. So if you have ideas, make sure to share them with folks further down the line. And I will, yes, I will be making this training, the recording available to folks, but I can also make the PowerPoint presentation available. I can just email it to folks, and so that you have it available too. So I'll just email it to everybody that signed up, and you'll have access as well. So this question has came up a lot, and I think it's really important, and it's something that we're definitely going to address in future years, but it wasn't something that was brought up in time for me to facilitate right now. Identification. Sometimes it's hard. For me, I'm a street guy, right? I'm used to doing street outreach. I don't need a name badge. I just walk up to people and say, hey, what's going on, right? But for some folks, it might be kind of hard to do that, especially if you don't have some kind of ID or something that says, hey, I'm a point in time count volunteer, right? So right now, at this point, there is no official ID that you're going to receive. But in future years, I'm going to make sure that we have something set up for you all. But it is totally acceptable to make your own. And I will say that's what we did in years past when I coordinated or facilitated in years past, was I would create a name badge that said point in time count volunteer, a PIT volunteer, put my name on there. I used mailing or shipping labels, you know, from my printer, my computer, that you would put on like an envelope, and a marker. And I just wrote it on there, and that was sufficient, right? If you got better skills and more technique, feel free to go ahead and make something more pretty and appealing and exciting. That's totally acceptable. But just make it basic. Point in time count volunteer, PIT volunteer, and your name. Just so folks know who you are and whatnot, but that's completely acceptable. Another idea is table topper. So if you're going to a place like a meal site or some kind of food box location, and they're going to say, oh, I'm going to give you a table to set up, right? You might just take a piece of paper and write point in time count volunteers or point in time count table, just so that you have something that identifies what you're doing sitting there, right? So with that in mind, take paper and markers, just saying. It might be helpful to you so that you can feel more comfortable and feel like you are getting a better response. And in the future, we as the organizers, the report that I'm going to provide to CSC in the completion of my activities will suggest that this is something that we provide moving forward in the future. But I did want to touch on the subject since it's been asked several times. So within your communities, there's going to be regional leads or volunteer coordination. So in Lincoln County, it's Karen Rockwell with the Housing Authority. In Albany, it's Carol Davies. She is with the COAT outreach team for Albany, and they've been doing street outreach and participating in the point in time count for a couple of years now. So they have a major network and a major understanding where to find folks. Great team to join up with. For the Corvallis folks, it'll be the Maddie Bean and the SORT team. I've seen some folks, was talking to Andy earlier, some folks on the SORT team. Great team, excellent experience. They're going to team you up with events or locations or their outreach teams. This is a great opportunity for anybody who's interested in being involved in street outreach. Get out there, ask to join that outreach team and see if you can get out there and do the count with them and learn a little bit about street outreach and see if that's something that you want to do continuing going forward, because these outreach teams continue street outreach all throughout the year. For Philomath, we have Sharon Thornberry. I saw Sharon's here as well. I can't see her right now, but Sharon's here. Sharon's the director of Philomath Community Services and will be facilitating the count out in that area, mainly focusing on food box distribution and things like that, and trying to make contact with folks that we know are living in fifth wheels and trailers that are doubled up on properties and things like that without access to services. So if you're volunteering in Corvallis or Philomath, you might be teaming up with Sharon. And then for East Lynn, so like Brownsville, Lebanon, Sweet Home area, you'll be working with Shirley Bird. Shirley Bird is with the Family Assistance and Resource Center. They have been doing street outreach in all of Lynn County for about 5 or 6 years now. And they run the Sweet Home Shelter as well. So they have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge about ways to access and make contact with folks. I'm going to check the chat here because I see a couple. Yes, Kim. I see you're here too. Hi, Kim. So Scioto would count as East Lynn. We basically look at anything east of I-5 as East Lynn County. Corey, what's up, dude?
So one of our volunteers says they have a bunch of office stuff that is going unused that they could donate, like table, tents, shipping labels, etc. Is there somewhere they could drop that off, or?
You can feel free to email me directly and I will facilitate that and I can distribute that to our leads if I have time. And then anything that's extra, I would just give to CSC if they were interested. If CSC is not interested, I would then ask to donate it to maybe an organization like Family Assistance and Resource Center or something like that, so that nothing gets left unused.
Daytime drop-in center.
Yeah, the daytime drop-in center, something like that. So yeah, if you are interested, please reach out to me. Oh, Narina says, I got an attic to clean out. Well, Narina, you and I live very close to each other, so I can definitely meet up with you. Let me know, and we will get that facilitated. So yeah, there's your info on your community leads. So these folks will also be the ones that are facilitating your volunteer shifts, right? So if you're not already working with an organization or an outreach team, then these community leads will be your point of contact for facilitating what your availability is and getting you assigned to a task, right? So I would just say, watch for an email or phone call from them. I gave them all the contact info that you all have given me. And so they should be reaching out just to try to facilitate some sort of schedule. Sorry, my kitty cat jumped in there. It's inevitable for every Zoom meeting, I promise. And if there's any questions or concerns or issues, maybe I messed up and sent you to the wrong facilitator. They're trying to schedule you in Corvallis and you really want to volunteer in Philomath or Sweet Home, feel free to reach out. Let me know. We'll get you reassigned and get you connected to the right folks. The sooner the better, though. As we get closer to the count, shifts will get filled and things will get kind of chaotic. And so I don't want anybody to get missed or not get a schedule that they're comfortable with. And so please, if there's any concern, reach out to me ASAP. So now I want to talk a little bit about approach and communication, right? So some of you, depending on your work experience or personal lived experience, you may have a broad knowledge of how to communicate with folks in a trauma-informed way. But ultimately, what we're doing is going out there as strangers and asking folks who are already experiencing crisis and trauma to share very personal information with us so that we can report it, right? That, like, does that not seem kind of shady? Like if I was walking out of the grocery store and somebody walked up to me and said, hey, I'm just going around counting folks today. Do you mind telling me your name and where you're living? I don't think I'd tell them. I think I'd have some choice words for them about their inquiry, right? So be mindful of that. We're going out there and kind of being invasive of folks in the space that we or some folks might not see as their own, but in their world, that is their own space, right? It's the only space that they have to keep their own privacy and their own lives to themselves. So what I say is, we're asking people personal questions. People are often leery of sharing, or we're entering their space. So most importantly, show kindness, respect, and dignity. Inform without implied pressure, right? So I always say, be open and honest with potential participants. They will likely be more inclined if they understand the purpose and value in what we're doing. But I want you to do that and inform them without implied pressure, right? So if somebody's very adamant and obvious up front and they say, no, I'm not interested, leave me alone. Okay, leave them alone. I'm not asking you to invade them, right? But if somebody says, oh, I don't know, you could just say to them, I could let you know why this is so important and the value of participating if you don't mind. Or you could just go into it. You could say something along the lines of, this information is reported, very privately, and the information is then used to help get funding for our area to determine what services are available for folks, right? To help increase money to our area so that we can offer more services. Find your wrap, right? Find your justification. But ultimately what we're doing is trying to get our fair share of resources and not get left out of the pie like we almost did last time, right? So this time we're going to make sure that we have the right to argue for our fair share of the pie. We want our amount of resources. And so we do that by sharing that information with the folks that we're communicating with, being real with them, being honest with them, treating them with kindness, respect, and dignity. And I promise, as long as you do that, you'll get good response from folks. We're not going to get everybody. It's normal that not everybody wants to share their information, that some folks aren't going to want to talk at all, that we'll miss some folks. That's normal, and that's okay. And don't feel like that's any kind of discouragement. And I will say, one thing that I've learned in homeless services is you never really get to see the true impacts of what you've done. Often it's done, is accomplished further on down the road. So for example, I left street outreach in Corvallis probably about 3 years ago. A year ago, I got a message on Facebook that somebody was telling me, hey, you don't remember me, but you found me in a tent and you encouraged me and you told me, and I wanted you to know that I'm 6 months clean now. And now they're 2 months clean, right? So, or 2 years clean, sorry. And so that's the same way with the point in time count. You might say something to somebody, you might ask them if they want to participate, and they might say, no, I'm not interested. And then they overhear you explain it to somebody else. So then the next person that asks them at the next event that they're at, they might say yes, right? So even having those conversations potentially is going to help get better numbers and better response in a different atmosphere that you're not even part of. And Corey, I'm going to stop here. I know you're doing a really good job at monitoring the chat. Is there anything that I need to jump on before we move forward?
Not really. There's just some things that I'll cover when you get into the app more.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, folks, I'm not very good at multitasking apparently, but thank goodness Corey's here. So the importance of data accuracy and complete surveys, right? So sometimes the app gives you opportunities to lessen the expectation of information being reported, but I always want to encourage folks to report the most complete data as you possibly can, mainly for integrity and reporting. So there's some examples of, like, if we survey 130 people, but only 60 of them answer the disability question, we really don't know how many of those 130 people have disabilities, do we? Right? And so it starts messing with the integrity of the information that we have available to us. So what I encourage folks is to really try to answer every question, as many questions as you can, and include as much detail as you can. For example, in the app, it asks for their first and last name. But if they're absolutely uncomfortable giving their first and last name, we can put their initials. As you can imagine, having the first and last name versus the initials makes it a lot easier for us, Corey, and myself to make sure there's no duplicated information, to make sure that they weren't recorded in a shelter count or something of the other sort, right? But if we only have initials, or we only have an age range versus a date of birth, it starts making it really hard to make sure that our information is very accurate. So although we want to keep going with the survey, we want to get as much info as they're willing to share with us, I want to try to encourage you all to try to get as much information out of them and get the complete answers to the questions as we possibly can, because that'll help us ensure that our information that we're reporting is accurate and unduplicated, right? So next I want to talk about something that's in addition to. So what I've talked about up until this point is that you all are participating in the unsheltered count, right? So when you go into the app and I give you the key to get in there, it'll ask you to choose what count are you doing. Generally speaking, I want to say 99% of the time, you are going to just choose unsheltered and answer all the questions. But with the thought that not everybody wants to participate, we're not able to make or contact with or reach every single individual when we're out doing counts, there is an option. Rather than choosing unsheltered, you can choose observation. Observation is exactly what it is. If we are unable to get the data that we really need to get an accurate reporting of who that individual is and what their story is, and all we can get is an observation, it asks you things like assumed gender, assumed age range, where did you see them at, right? So that we can also count them, even though they might be not be giving us all the full information that we really would like to have, we still can account for those folks. So I refer to it as the last resort. We don't want anybody missed, but we definitely don't prefer that method. That's the method that's going to get us the least bang for our buck. It's valuable information regardless, and if that's all we can get, we just get it, and we try to be as accurate as possible. So an observation survey is when we are unable to make contact or somebody is unwilling to participate. It's a best guess estimate. Data is still used, but lacks important details. Rather, capture them than miss them. Sorry, and I used to the wrong then, so I appreciate. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. But anyways, the important thing is capturing the data, making sure that every person and every individual counts. And so if we're unable to capture them in the normal unsheltered count, observation survey is an option, and we'd rather get that than not get the data at all. So does that make sense to everybody? Anybody have any questions on that part there? I kind of fumbled my words there. I don't want to have anything left hanging. You can feel free to unmute if you want to. Corey's still typing away. I can see him going at it.
I
really
got a question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
Aren't we on the observation aspect of it? Aren't we worried about double counting?
So that's why it gets really convoluted when I'm explaining, but the data is used in different ways in the reporting, right? So we would be able to use that data on a more local level, right? But we won't be able to guarantee that it's unduplicated. There is no way in the observation. So it's not utilized the same way by the federal government or the numbers that the state will look at, but it is still utilized in the overall observation of what homelessness looks like in our region. And maybe Corey has a little more detail on that.
Yeah, I'm pretty good about deduplicating too, since I have multiple different ways of verifying and double checking the information against multiple references. So usually with observations though, we don't usually get many of those because usually you'll be able to do an actual interview. And one of the questions on there is, have you been interviewed for the pick count this year already? So that question alone saves a lot of that. But like you said, observations are more like if someone's sleeping and you're not going to wake them up to do the survey type thing. So, you won't be using those as frequently. So it's not as a high a risk.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but your concern is completely legitimate, and that's one of the reasons why we say the most amount of data, preferring getting the regular unsheltered survey, and observations kind of last resort to just make sure that we're trying to get everybody counted. So thank you for that question. And thank you, Corey, for that additional info.
Scott, I've got two questions here.
Yeah.
I got one in the chat. What happens if they use a street name?
Take it.
Save it,
Take it.
take it.
Use it.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you don't need, okay. And the
If
other
they're
one
not
is,
comfortable, yeah, just use their street name, because then they're probably going to use that street name anywhere else too, right? But
okay.
then, like Corey said, if you get their real date of birth, because they gave you a street name, so they really don't care, and they did actually get counted at a shelter or somewhere else, and they have the full information, Corey can compare those two and see like, hey, hold on a second, this guy's
Okay.
looking real familiar, and maybe his name really isn't D-Dog or whatever that is, So I don't
Another
know, Corey.
thing too, if they don't want to give their full name, that's fine. Sometimes I recommend at least first name and the last initial if they can. That way it just gives me something else to compare versus, two initials. At least if it's Corey H is a lot easier than CH.
Yeah.
To deduplicate.
Okay.
Perfect.
My other question is, if we go up to a group tent and, I think Corey mentioned that somebody might be sleeping out there, and you check in with one person and they say, oh, that's Sea-Dog over there. Can we put Sea-Dog down even though we haven't asked that person in person?
I would say that would be an observation, right? Because we want the details of their information that we're pulling from them, right? And we don't want to ask other people those personal questions, because there's questions that get into disability, things like that. So we could just do observation, and that would be sufficient in that circumstance.
In the observation, there's like a note section of like other things you might note. You could, in that case, like if they're like, hey, that's Sea-Dog, you could put in the notes, another member identified this person as Sea-Dog. It's not that I'll take that information, but that helps me narrow it down later on. If Sea-Dog shows up in a shelter, I can double check the stuff.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Corey. But there is also, Andy, I would say with that also said, if they are part of the same household and so-so's in the tent, right? Like we all stay here, but I'm the only one awake. You can count the household. You can ask them the household data and just enter that person. So when you go into the survey, and I'll show you in a minute, you can choose individual or household. If you choose household, it'll give you the chance to enter a few data points on multiple people in the household. So you can also do it that way if they are part of the same household as well. Any other questions? These are great conversations. This is perfect. Like I said, the folks that may watch this later on will really appreciate this.
So I do have one more question. So
yeah, thank you.
When you consider it to be a household, do you consider that to be in one tent, or could it be several tents in that same area?
It's really how they identify. If they identify as a single household unit, I mean, like if we have some teenagers or adult children, they're probably not going to sleep in our same tent with us, but they're still part of our household. If I got housed, they would be living with me, right? I'm not going to let them stay on the street. So that can also be best friends, right? Or people that we just care about and look out for while we're out on the street and doing those things. So definitely, whatever they identify as a household. Cool. Thank you, guys.
One more thing, Scott, that I wanted to say.
Go for it, Sharon.
Sharon Thornberry here. But one of the things I've had happen in the past, and you were talking about somebody who doesn't want to talk to you, they'll actually look at their friend and say, answer for me, or tell them my stuff, because they aren't comfortable telling their own story, but they'll let somebody else tell it. So I don't know how you want that coded, Corey, but I mean, they're standing there or they're there.
I mean, if
they don't want to tell their own story.
If they're like, hey, I don't want to tell you, but he can tell me, I would say that's fine.
Okay.
They gave you permission, so I would take it that way.
I agree. 100%.
Honestly, the more people we have counted, the better our results. Even, if we don't get all the information. This isn't the same as like an HMIS where you have to have every single thing because it's required by HUD. This is a general like net. We're just trying to get as much general information as possible so that we can get a better picture of where we need to put our funding.
Right. Well, I want to tell you, I'm very grateful that I'm doing this here in this area this year, because in the past years, I've dealt with it in the gorge. And the powers that be in the gorge have declared war on the homeless this year, if you haven't followed that. And it's getting pretty
Yeah.
bad.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why we do what we do, is to try to get the services so that we can offer the resources and get folks out of that situation, right? Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Corey. So now we're going to get into the app. So if y'all want to pull up your phones again and like get ready, unlock them, all that good stuff. So once again, it comes in a phone app or desktop formatted. You're going to create your account. Hopefully you've already done that. You're going to choose your count, and then you're going to choose your count type. We have two options, unsheltered or observation, and then you're going to survey contacts. It's a simple, fairly simple process. So when you choose your count, it's going to ask for your key. That is this highlighted yellow here. This is an important thing. Write it down, tattoo it on the back of your hand, whatever you got to do, but make sure that we are using this key here so that we are recording our data to the proper count. There's been some incidences in the past where folks have been maybe past volunteers or whatever, and they're entering the data into a past count, and then that creates a lot of headaches for Corey. And I don't want to do that. I want to create an easy path for Corey.
If you have used Counting Us in previous counts, you will still probably be linked to one of the old counts, and it'll ask you, there should be like a green banner that says join new count. That is the one you're gonna click on that to enter your code to lock in, I believe.
Thank you, Corey.
Does it hurt to put that in right now? Or should we wait?
No, you put that in right now. The next thing that comes next is what's really important after that too. Because once you put in this code, it should lock you into the 2024 count. And then it's going to ask you to select your county. And this is where it's really important. So, and this is what comes to that one where I was saying about the multiple locations that can cause some catches. So like, it's not a big deal if you're in Philomath and like Corvallis County, because you're still in Benton County. So you want to select the county that you will be counting in. If you, for some reason, have done all your counting in Lynn County, for example, and then you're going to go start volunteering in a different county like Benton County, once you've submitted all the Lynn County surveys, you'll need to email me and let me know you're going to be switching counties, because I have to go into the app and I have to manually change you from whatever county you're in to the next county. You're not able to do that yourself. So that's a huge thing if you're in one of those teams that counts multiple counties. If you're in the same county, though, just select the county you're in. You can do multiple cities in that same county.
And while folks are getting their count chosen, which is once again the highlighted letters and numbers here, I do want to step back. I saw a comment in the chat and it made me realize that I missed a slide. I missed creating a slide. We need to talk about some safety things. So there's all kinds of safety aspects of this, but it's something I didn't think about when I was creating this training that I think we can step back and talk about. The first thing is you always want to be mindful of your own comfort, right? So when you're talking to your team lead or facilitator for your local area and talking about what you want to participate in and how you want to participate, make sure you communicate your comfort level and concerns that you may have, and really get something chosen that's going to fit what you're willing to do. I will also let you know that the team leads have been instructed to team up as many folks as they can with experienced volunteers. People have done this in the past, and folks that are already doing outreach and things like that. So the preference is that you'll be teamed up with somebody who's not brand new at this and has a little bit of experience. There really is all kinds of things to be concerned about when it comes to safety, right? We're out in the public, we're interacting with folks, we're interacting in environments that may not always have the best sanitation, whatever that may be. So I would say, first of all, be considerate of what you sign up for and where you're going, and be prepared for that. If you are somebody with high risk health situations, it's okay to wear a mask if you want to. It's okay to sign up for something that's outdoors instead of indoors, whatever your comfort range is. If you're going to an outdoor event or you're going to be walking around with the outreach teams, dress for that. Wear some layers, right? Wear some hardy shoes that will protect your feet. I would also say if there's ever a moment that you feel uncomfortable or that you feel unsafe, you would take all the same protocols that you would in any other average situation. You would, leave, get away from what's making you feel unsafe or uncomfortable. And if it is a threat to you or anybody else's life or safety, we would report it to the police immediately. I'm not a big fan of calling the police, but when it has to do with life or safety and protecting yourself or others, that is the right thing to do when we're out there. Okay, so take water, take gear to be warm or that you can take off if you start to get too hot, and be mindful of your own comfort and your own safety, and never put yourself in a situation where it doesn't feel right, and feel free to reach out for support from your team lead or myself, or to leave a situation if needed. And so with that said, I'm going to bug Kim and just say, is that what you were thinking, Kim? It is very, very important, Kim, to talk about safety, and traditionally I have done that, and so I appreciate you bringing that up so I can get
Hey,
that added.
Scott,
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention, having an exit strategy, pre-plan it, you know what I mean? Talk to your people that you're going with and having some kind of a plan. Because my father used to always tell me, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So having a plan in place for those kind of situations, even a code word, so everybody doesn't know that you're having a hard time with that situation. The pineapple word or some kind of a safety word that says, "Hey, my teammates feeling really uncomfortable. Let me say this word," so everybody's aware of it, but not the people that we're talking to.
100%. Thank you so very much. That is a great point. And so and basically just to recap, when you get set up with your partners, before you go in or when you show up to a place, have that discussion about like, what's your plan if things don't feel comfortable, if things don't feel right, or if you want to abort mission, what are we going to say or what are we going to do? So that's great. Thank you so much. So we are getting towards the end here. So I'm going to try to shoot into the app here. So once again, we're all doing the unsheltered count, unless we have to do an observation, right? So you should already be in there. You could choose the unsheltered count. Once you choose unsheltered, it'll give you the option of English or Spanish. Well, like I mentioned earlier, they'll give you the option of individual or household. And you guys can go ahead and choose these as we're going through if you want. Just choose some random ones. And then it'll ask you about location, right? It'll ask you where you're at. I just let the app tap into my phone's geolocator, and so it just naturally has me mapped out, and I just hit next step. And so then we get into the question. Have you already been interviewed today for the point in time count? If they say yes, you will get this message right here. Thank you for your time. We only need to survey each person once. Note to surveyor, click back into the left corner, right? So we're going backwards to start back over again. If they say no, it starts dropping into the traditional questions that you're going to ask. Why are you homeless, right? Were you turned away for lack of available services? Where are you sleeping at night? And it gives you a list, right? It'll tell you a tent, a park, a car, whatever, right? An RV. If you say a vehicle, right? What type of vehicle or structure are you staying in? So here's some examples here. So it tells you like RV in disrepair, occupants do not have access to sewer or water, RVs parked in an unusual place where RVs are not allowed to park. Kind of gives you an idea, right? So if we have an RV that's in a traditional RV park that has electricity and water and they have a satellite outside, those probably aren't the folks we're going for, right? It's like, that's more a retirement situation. We're going for the folks that don't have access to the needed services for a healthy lifestyle, right? To be comfortable. So folks who are in a place of disrepair, not meant for long-term habitation, don't have access to sewer or water, unhealthy, right? Then we get into so a little bit more personal information. So then it's your name. Like I mentioned before, we would really prefer first, last name. Like Corey mentioned, if they don't want to give that, but we still want to get more than initials, maybe first initial, last name, or first name, last initial, whatever that may be. Yeah, Crystal, what's up?
Those are not the questions that I'm seeing on my unsheltered survey.
They're not. What county did you choose?
Lynn County.
Huh. Okay,
I'm
now
gonna log in real quick and see what the survey shows.
yeah, because they might have updated it. I'm not sure.
So my first question asks about the appearance, the person's appearance.
Did you do the observation?
Yeah, you chose the observation count. We got to do
instead
the
of the
unsheltered
individual or
No, it says unsheltered survey.
count. It does.
Give me a
There,
second.
there must be a glitch because that's not what it did. Just so you know, Crystal, I made this training this week, so something must have changed. I'm gonna pull out my phone.
I'm seeing the questions on the Benton County survey that you're showing.
Okay.
I also see Island County survey.
as they're appearing on the screen.
Okay, that's how they're coming up on my phone too. So you might sign back out, Crystal, and see if you can re-enter the data because I'm in it right now and it's all coming up exactly how the screen is showing it.
Yeah,
I'm not
so is mine.
sure.
And I have me in Lynn County, so
I'm trying to figure out how do I share a screenshot?
I can stop sharing. Actually, Crystal, we're down to 4 minutes left of the training, so I want to keep going. If you want to hang on afterwards, you and I can work out the details of what's going on
yeah,
in your
we'll
count,
troubleshoot.
okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Sorry. So also with what Crystal's saying, some of what you're seeing is not complete. So there is additional questions like disability, where we get into disability questions and things like that that weren't present when I made this training. But they do get into detail. So if we can't get their first and last name, we will get the initials. For gender, they try to do a good job at including plenty of options. So make sure to give folks those options. Date of birth is preferred. If we can't get that, we'll talk about what is your age, and what is your age range fall into. So if they're not comfortable giving you an exact date, we'll say like, okay, so are you like 40 to 45, 50 to 55? So we can get an idea of like where they're at, right? Same thing with race. They try to give you plenty of options, but there is another option in case we didn't capture everything. Once you get past all the disability questions and all that, you'll get into the homeless history. There's a few additional questions that ask about natural disasters. So are you homeless as a result of a natural disaster? And then it asks you to please remember to thank the person for their time. So going back to what I said earlier about this being invasive and we're impeding on their space, it's really good to show appreciation at the end and let them know that we really appreciate what they've done and that they've participated. And then at the end, gives you a chance to make notes of anything that you think might be concerning or anything that didn't work right when you were filling it out or whatever that may be, additional genders that you would like to see in there, whatever that may be. Then you'll hit submit survey. Once you hit submit survey, as long as everything was recorded properly, you should see that last little window there, the response that gives you an ID and successfully submitted. When I did it, I screenshotted every one of those, but I don't think that's necessary, probably Corey, but it was like a personal OCD thing for me. Just to make sure that we had them ID'd. And that's it. And I saw that Corey shared the demo video. Since we're down to the last 2 minutes, I won't make everybody stay extra time. But the demo video is in the chat and it is a great video. I'll say that because I made it, right? I'm the person being recorded and I didn't make it. But I would say it's a good example of just a way to approach and a way to ask the questions. Matter of fact, the actor in the video is the person that I spoke of earlier that I met on outreach, who's now doing amazing. He's working, has a home, has been cleaning for over 2 years and is doing awesome. So watch that video, get an idea of what account looks like and what we do when we administer the survey. And with that, I'll try to give you guys a couple minutes for questions. Any questions, folks?
I have a question.
Okay, what's up?
So I've not done anything like this, and I apologize if this should be obvious to me. I know that
You're fine.
we're functioning as volunteers,
Yep.
but we are outreaching to a vulnerable population that may request any sort of assistance right there on the spot, be it money or food. Are there guidelines as to how we handle that? Is it personal preference because we're not paid?
So yeah, there are resources out there. If you feel comfortable, you can become knowledgeable of what's out there. CSC, Community Services Consortium, has a resource guide that we've traditionally used. That's available on their website. Traditionally, Corey, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's still there. That resource guide is actually broken up by county and types of resources. So it's really helpful to have with you if you want to download it to your phone or whatever. That's something that I will add in future trainings as well as a link to that. But that is really what most people have used. It is okay to say that you are only a volunteer for the point in time count, and it is okay to say that you don't have a lot of experience with resources, and that's why you're volunteering, is so that you can help get these resources to our area. So if you don't have the answers, that's okay. I'll tell you right now, doing street outreach, I didn't have the answer or the service that they needed 90% of the time, because they're just not available. But being honest and straightforward with folks was always my best avenue, and trying to provide them with the information that I had available to me.
Also, if you don't really have a whole lot of information or knowledge, you know, Crossroads Communities here in Lebanon is definitely a good for advocating for those services for people that might not know about them. So you might not have any answers for them as well, but if you want to direct them to some people that do, Crossroads Communities can help them fill out paperwork for services. I mean, we can go over a whole list of things that we know about, and just, you know, we're here for all that too.
And are you guys able to help folks that are outside the Lebanon area?
Yes, Lynn County.
Okay, so all of Lynn County, the Crossroads is an opportunity for you guys, and they do have an excellent facility. They have meeting locations. They have outreach programs, so they're a good resource for folks in Lynn County. And thank you for that question. I'll be adding that resource guide as one of the links that I send out with this PowerPoint, so you guys will get that too. Sharon, did you have a question?
Yeah, can we get printed copies of the resource guide? Does CSC have them available?
I don't know the answer to that question. Corey, do you?
I don't know the answer to that either.
Okay,
I'll reach
ask that
out.
I
question.
know they have them on
Yeah.
their website. I don't know if they might have some printed ones in their offices, but I know that they don't have a lot of like printed ones because they just
Right.
usually keep them what's in the office for people.
So
to
the
come
other
in.
thing that's easy to carry is a 211 business card. And I know that's not the most accessible necessarily for somebody that's homeless, but at least it's an answer, or it's something that you feel compelled that you have to call and get information. 211 really can help direct people. And then here in Philomath on Thursday mornings, we have, and he goes to Alc on Thursday afternoons. We have an outreach worker from the health department that provides all kinds of help. To not just on the health plan to people. So there's probably, you know, look around wherever it is you're working and find out, like Crossroads, who's doing that. Because the Oscar that comes here, he helps people fill out their SSI applications, all kinds of things. And we're trying to get veteran services in here. So, and in Monroe, I know they do it in Monroe too.
So, hey, Scott, do you mind if I share my screen real quick?
No, not at all. But I probably have to make it to where you can. Can you share
Okay.
now? Share.
Should be able to now, I think. Cool. Make sure I'm in the right one here.
And if anybody has to jump off, I totally understand. I appreciate you all
So-
hanging out for the extra time.
What I want to show is really important on this. So when you log in, this is what you'll be at since you've already registered and you should be in your account. You'll hit that get started, and the first thing you should notice is it should say the 2024 point and count up top. If you have any other year than 2024, let me know so I can get you changed to the right one or have you move over to the right one. The next thing is, this is the one you should hit, is that unsheltered survey. The unsheltered observation is going to give you those observation ones. But if you look in the unsheltered survey, you can hit your English or Spanish, depending on which one you're going, individual or household. And this is what's important. When he goes to this next step, this map pen here is important. So when you're doing them in the field, it's going to drop this pin exactly where you are when you do it. So if you're, for some reason, saving a draft and then entering it in later on at the office or something, this pin may now move to your office and you'll have to move it back to where you did the survey. So keep that in mind. The map pin is important. That's how they know where people are at and like that. And it for the heat spread and all that stuff. Or you can just enter the address in if you know the address as well. But
Or
it will
you just
automatically drop
tap
a pin.
on that. That's it. You just tap on it and that sets it.
Yeah, you can just move it wherever. It's a drag it to where you need it to go. So, you know, if I was like it shows right now, obviously it's pinning it at my house because I work remote. But if I was doing it at the YMCA where I did the count, then I would just drag this to the YMCA and then hit next step.
So
And that'll
typically,
lock it in.
so typically speaking, you're just gonna upload the survey right there, right? But Andy, as
Yes.
you know, sometimes when you're doing outreach or you're underneath a bridge or a overpass, or you know you're in a random place, you don't have signal and it won't upload. And so then you have the opportunity to save it as a draft, and then you would really want to make sure to move that little red thing, whatever that's called, sorry,
To
to
drop the map pin.
map pin to the proper location and stuff. So typically speaking, we would just want to ensure that we just upload it right there out on the spot. But there is going to be some situations, even inside of buildings, where you won't have signal and won't be able to do
And
that. Keep saving.
another
them,
thing
keep doing
too,
it.
if you run into an issue where you're having problems with moving the map before you submit it, or you need to submit it and you need the map moved and it's just not working for you, you can email me the survey number and stuff like that, and I can go in the location. I can go in and try to move it for you if it's not working. But I just wanted to mainly show that. But after that, then you just have your, because you'll see here, submit survey or save as draft. And then of course, if you do save it as a draft, yes, that's fine. Go back. Oh man. Of course.
So basically saving it as a draft means you can go back and edit it.
Mm-hmm. And then on your main screen here, that's where you'll see it is down here on the bottom. You'll see draft. And you can hit your drafts and it'll show all your saved drafts that you need to submit.
Mm-hmm. Would you recommend that we save all of them?
Only save them if you have no reception. Submit them because we don't want you to forget and then get lost. So if you can submit them right away, submit them right away. Otherwise, submit them as soon as you have the service available to do so.
Yeah, the draft disappears as soon as you submit. So you aren't really saving them to your phone.
Yeah, it's just saving it.
It's only if you have to go back to it or you don't have transmission, but you can't save all these to your phone permanently.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it on that.
Cool. Well, I kept you guys a little longer than I had planned, but thank you all for hanging out. I really appreciate it. For those that had to go, I totally understand as well. I will say, if you have continued questions, please hang out. I'm in no hurry. I'm here for you all. But if you need to go, please go. And please look forward to hearing from your team leads in the next week, getting your volunteer shifts and whatnot. And if you did write down an email, feel free to email them and pass to them too.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you all so very much. Have a wonderful day.